All right, back working on the Takamine. Got the other side all pretty much sanded down, almost ready for paint. And just going through the same process on this side with the larger one that I did for the other one. I put pieces of tape here to mark the ends, and then got the measurements for how far from the edges, and then took the big piece and fit it on there. And then using my template, I cut a piece to fit. I've got it labeled so I know which way it goes in. I've already put all the wires through with the ferrules on the end. Got them all laid out, ready to go. So I can just tape this sucker or glue this thing right in there. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and pop some glue on this one and put it in. And like I said, on the other side, looking pretty good, right? Just about ready for paint on that side. All right, so let's get some glue on this one, and all I have to do is go through again and make sure on my clamps that all the posts are backed out so that when I go to put the wire in, I don't have any trouble. I want to make sure they're all set to be straight up and down so I can just pull the wire through, clamp it down, and off we go to the races. Go through that real quick while I'm just standing here. That one looks good. Two more. All right, post is backed out on that one, and the post, because you don't want to do this while you've got glue that could be setting up and drying. So everything is all ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and take this tape off because I just wanted to show you that I had done the same process on both sides. I know this isn't exactly the most thrilling television to watch. No car chase scenes or going over waterfalls. 3 times she drops. But this is what's involved in doing this kind of work. And there we go. And yes, this would have been easier to do before I did all that, but no worries. Still not hard to do, just a little bit cumbersome. Okay. All right, all the tape is off, except for the pieces of tape I have holding my wires. Gonna get some glue. Get the glue surfaces. Some glue on the surfaces. Again, I don't mind a little squeeze out. That's par for the course. Well, most of these kind of glue joints when you're building is if you don't get a little glue squeeze out, you probably didn't put enough glue on. I realize that's a pretty generalized statement, but I saw a post a guy did today on one of the builders groups, and he glued a fingerboard on, and when he took the clamps off, there was a gap along the whole edge between the fingerboard and the neck, and he didn't get enough glue in there. And he didn't get any glue squeeze out, so that's going to be a little tough to deal with. So I'm just going to get a couple of pieces of paper towel ready for wiping up squeeze out. Just so I've got them all here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. All right, let's start putting clamps on. I'm just going to start here at this end. Get rid of some of that glue there. Oops. Why, you little stinker. All right, let's get it and put it back. Now I am using a different type of tight bond that does have a little longer working time. I had it recommended to me from a friend who has he works with a small acoustic guitar builder that is using this new tight bond, so I thought I'd give it a try. Again, pull it through. Clamp it down. Where's my cutters? Cut it off and start clamping. All right. Once again, I have my lines on there that show me which direction to tighten. One down. I'm going to put I'm just going to work around the edge here. So number 2. Whoops. Help if I would go this way so the post would be retracted. Extra wire. I've got a trash can right there ready to go. Okay. Get this one next. And again, I really, if you're going to make these clamps or buy the Stumac ones or the other guys that sell them, is, you know, it'd probably be cheaper to just make your own, like I did out of some spare high quality plywood, and just get the locking tuners. Boy, it saves a ton of time and hassle. I don't have to worry, you know, trying to get that wire through a regular tuner around several times to where it wouldn't slip was a hassle. My own professional or non-professional opinion. But with the locking tuner, boy, it just really speeds it up, and I don't have to worry about the glue setting up. All I gotta do is pull that wire through, tighten down the post, clamp the wire, cut it off, and start cranking. And as you remember, I did put some tape and a diagram on top of each one so I know which way to turn to tighten, okay? All right. Next one, get the tape off, put the wire through, and we're golden. Tighten it down. This one's going to be a little tricky. Got it. Okay. Cut it off. And tighten it down. I'm going to put a piece under there and make that thing clamp down the other way a little more. Hang on just a second. I just need to get a small piece of wood. I just want to force this one to clamp on the inside more. So I'm just going to put a piece of wood in there to force it the way I want it. Go. I think that's got it. Squirmy little bugger. Oh, we're good. A little more pressure. Good. All right. I'm going to put one on this corner. Just a couple more to go. I can do the same thing on that one, so let's give it a whirl. Got a couple extra pieces of thin wood here to do just that. There we go. I like it. Because these clamps are really made to work on a flat surface. And of course, the top of this guitar is arched, so I'm having to do some tricky finagling to get, broke the string. All right, we'll have to put another one through there, not a problem. Let me finish the rest. I'll just have to do it the normal way and go through the sound hole. It does happen sometimes. Get a little too greedy with clamping pressure. Sometimes with some of those, I want to get a little more clamping pressure, I'll go with a little bit heavier wire, because this is a 15 thousandths of an inch wire. And you can go a little heavier if you want to. For a little more clamping pressure, you just got to think about the job you're doing is all. All right, one more. Where's the clamp? Oh. Did I break the wire? Let's try. Let's see what's happening here. Oh no, the wood came out. Okay. So let's try and get the wood back in there. Or did I break the string? Let's find out. Yeah, we broke the string. All right, let's just put a new wire through there the old-fashioned way. And we'll get this all done and come back a little bit. All right, to feed the new wire through, I broke that one. I just took the thing and right in the seam punched a hole. Now I've got a longer piece of wire, bringing it through, all the way through and out the sound hole. We're just gonna put one of the ferrules on the end. Just like before. Two, three. Put a little handle on the end so I can easily pull it out when it's all done and dried. All right, pull it up through. Got my clamp all ready to go. Just got to straighten out the, there we go. Just took a longer piece of wire was all. All right, pull it up through. And just because of the order, we're gonna put this one on the outside. Tighten it down and cut off the excess. And be a little careful this time about tightening it too much. Again, it happens every now and then. You go for one more turn on the clamp and the wire says, nope, tensile strength exceeded. Yep, that's doing good. And you do want to check them all though, because sometimes that wire, the several loops that I put in there, they'll loosen up just like guitar strings will. So I'm going to check the tension on all of them. It just feels pretty good. You can tell if they're loose or not. That one feels good. This one feels good. That one's great. This one's good. A little more on this one. That's got it all nice and flush back down. One more time. All right, they're all on. Now to just set it aside, let it dry, and then we'll get it finished up. All right, welcome back to working on this Takamine that got kicked in. As you remember, the other side is almost ready for paint. Just some final block sanding. And I did a patch on this side, and boy, this side came out really nice. It really is flush, even after I broke that one wire and had to quickly put another one in. Because the glue I was using had a little more open work time, I had no problem just fishing that wire through, and off we go. So I just got a little glue squeeze out. I'm just gonna clean this up, and then we're gonna start just a little couple gaps around the edges. We're gonna start filling those in, and then sand this one down, and we will be ready for the final finishing. But yeah, this one looks really nice. I'm really pleased with how well that piece went in. We'll see you when I get ready to do some black sanding and get some paint on them. All right, continuing to work on the Takamine this morning. I've done twice over it, filling in the gaps. And I'm just block sanding it down. Again, small block of wood. Just to there's still a couple of spots that need to be filled a little more. But again, it's kind of like doing drywall. I don't want to try to fill it all at once. And when I do fill it, I've gone back over and scraped off the excess, so I don't have as much to sand. So now I'm just looking for the low spots that still exist. Because by scraping off the excess epoxy too, then I have less that I have to sand off later. All right, I think I've got it down to where I want it. Let's vacuum it off and have a look. All right, here we go. Hang on a second. All right, now at this point, what I want to determine is, have I got high spots or low spots? Because, you know, those will have to be handled a little differently. Whoops, I'm just adjusting the camera. Looks like these are all low spots, definitely. Yeah, that's pretty good there. That'll come out with some final sanding. So I think I'm just gonna go in. There's just a couple of low spots here that are just gonna, where there was seams, there's just gonna take a little bit more to fill them in. So I think one more time on the fill in the low spots, and then this side will be ready for final sanding and painting too. All right, I'm gonna give this a couple more over and then we'll fill it in. All right, got a little mixed up here, and we're gonna just try filling in these couple of low spots. After this, if there's any really small low spots, we'll just do the super glue and glue boost process, which works really, really well. That to settle in. Now this last time, I'm probably not going to scrape this down because sometimes that allows for shrinking back. So once I fill these spots, we're pretty much just going to leave them to make sure I don't get any more shrinking back. Yep, I'll get my nail on that one, so there's a little fill needed there. Seeing if it'll catch my fingernail or not. All right, that looks good. Gonna let that dry, and then we'll get back on to final sanding and painting in a little bit. All right, done overspraying the repaired areas on this old Takamine. Let's pull the tape and paper off and let's see what it looks like before we get into buffing. Here we go. It's almost like I'm wrapping a Christmas present. And I do try where I can to get the tape off without damaging the paper, just to save it if I can use it again. If not, I got plenty of it, no big deal. I just try not to waste anything here. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to rip it off. It's like trying to save wrapping paper. Sometimes you just gotta rip it off and go for it. There we go. Oh, it's funny how it takes way longer to put this on than it does to take it off, right? Just like wrapping a present. There we go. Let's not knock it over. There we go. Oh, we're getting a look at the area that I masked off. We'll get there in just a minute. Be patient. Oh, I'm going to tilt this up a little. Whoops. Earthquake. There we go. Some of that paper can be saved. I'm just going to set that aside. Didn't really have a lot of paint on it, or any at all for that matter. All right, back to this side. Let's get this piece of tape off of here. Boy, a little bit of black paint they got underneath the paper. All right, we'll deal with it. Doesn't look bad. We're gonna have to go. I'm gonna go crazy with the sanding because this is a repair, and the finish on this guitar is pretty worn, showing a lot of playing wear. But I want it to look decent, and of course to save cost with the customer. It's a really dark bluish green, semi-translucent. You can, if you really look at it under the right light, you can kind of see the wood grain through the finish. But to save her money, rather than trying to custom blend the finish, and because we were trying to hide the repair, I just went with solid black, because it's, you know, lacquer is easily and readily pre-mixed, already available, and because I just had such a small area to do, rattle canning it was fine. All right, so let's take a look at those two areas. Here's the first one, looking pretty good. Little orange peel, little stuff like that. We'll take care of that. Here's the other side. This was the bigger hole, so my spray area goes from there all the way over to about here. So not looking bad. All right, now I'm gonna set up to start. You know, and here's the top again. It's got a lot of wear and dent and dings and stains and scratches and what have you. Well-loved guitar, hence why we're doing the repair. It's a a loved instrument. Better to, didn't want another one, didn't want to, anything. And it's not horrible. It's a player's instrument. It'll clean up real nice when we get all done. All right, so now I'm gonna start setting up my wet sanding. I think I'm gonna probably start at either 600 or 800, but I'm gonna go up to 2500, and then we'll do some hand buffing, just on smaller areas like this. It takes me a little longer than using a buffer, but it doesn't spray the compounds around that I'm gonna use. And I don't have my new StewMac buffer set up just yet. I've got a cabinet to build to put it on, so I'm just gonna do this one by hand. Again, I'm not looking for perfection in this guitar. I'm looking for it to look, obviously it'll have been repaired, but it'll be playable, it'll look good, not horrible. All right, we'll come back when I got the wet sanding all set up. All right, I've got all of my wet sanding stuff set up. I've got a small wooden block with just a real thin, heavy neoprene pad on it. It's the same stuff I used to do my workbench. It's just because I'm gonna be wet sanding and not using a lot of pressure. I've got my paper all set up here. There's 600, 800,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500. Got several pieces of each. And I've got the guitar. What I also do, I'm gonna be sanding on this area, but I put, with really low tack tape, I put paper towels all the way around. That's just to protect the rest of the guitar, catch any drips and drops. It's just less I have to clean up later. And when I get into the compound, that keeps the compound from getting on any parts of the guitar I want it to get on. Like here's the output jack and the button. I don't want to get water down into those. Just an extra sense of, a little bit of extra security. So I'm gonna start with a piece of 600, and I've got it wet. It's all soaking. So I'm gonna start in a small area first and kind of work the edges to try to blend those into the existing finish, a little bit at a time. Again, I'm not using a lot of pressure because I don't want to remove much material. What I'm really looking to do is start to polish this up, a little more water as I need it, and to feather the edges so you don't feel that hard edge where the new lacquer is over the top of the old lacquer or poly, whatever this is. And even though it's obviously probably a poly finish on this, import guitar, I do use lacquer just because of the new coats as I spray them and build up a finish will blend into the old coats. So as I sand, I don't get witness lines, that kind of thing. But I'm just looking to kind of to feather the edges and then dull the, with the 600 here. Just take a little bit of the orange peel off, that kind of thing. I'm gonna start with 600 and then work my way up to 2,500 and then compound. Now I probably won't go all the way to the swirl remover because then this section will be too shiny compared to the rest of the guitar. I want to kind of blend this in to the existing finish as much as possible so that it may not be as noticeable until you point it out to somebody. So I'm just going to work the edges a little more. I don't want to break through this finish into the bare wood underneath. On the edges, I'm not as concerned because the edges are just going to be over the existing bluish green finish. I'm not going to worry about breaking through to that. That's okay. But, where I've done the repair, I really don't want to, a lot of that sanding went down to the bare wood of the repair, and I don't want to break into that. Because then I got to start all over and call the customer and tell her it's going to be another 2 weeks. And honestly, I've had this one a little too long. Sometimes these kind of finish repairs take longer than you want them to. One of the things I really need to improve on is my finishing work. That's why I got the new buffer system, plus my estimations. I really dislike it when I promise or I say I can have something done by a date. I always strive to have it done early, but with some of these finishing things, I tend not to get there. I need to do a better job of that. Everything can be improved upon. I don't care how long you've been doing something or how long you've been playing an instrument or playing pro volleyball or basketball. You can, Michael Jordan had a coach. You can always get better at what you're doing. You can always find ways to get better. So this is the wet sanding process. Just keep adding a little water as you need to keep floating the material off as you wet sand. And I think I'm probably as good as I'm going to get with the 600. You're not removing a lot of material, but you don't want to remove too much. So I'm going to take a break and wipe this down with paper towels and have a look at it and see if I need to do a little more with 600 or if I can stop and go to the 800, okay? Especially on the edges here. I want to make sure I get those feathered with this as much as I can with the 600, because the higher I go in the grit, the longer it's going to take to remove any material. Start to get above 400 and you're really into the polishing mode. You're really not removing much material at all. As long as I have a good dull satin finish over the whole thing, I've hit all, got rid of the orange peel. So let's have a look. Let's wipe this off with a paper towel, whoops, and have a look. Normally I have a bunch of paper towels set out and ready to go. I forgot to do that. Boy, that does not look bad. The edges feel pretty good. I think I may be done with the 600. I think I might just go over it a little bit more though. Let's see. I think I'll go over it just a little more with the 600. What I'm going to do is move to the other side of that piece that I had. And the edges here where the binding is don't look bad. I just want to make sure. I want them to not be felt. Because typically, everybody that gets a repair like this, they're going to at some point run their hand over it, run their fingers over it to feel it. It's human nature. And I don't want it to I don't want you to be able to feel the edges. A little more with the 600 before I break into the 800. Now you know why finish repair can take a long time. The wet sanding and buffing is a tedious, time-consuming process. It can be meditative, but it's not the same as doing a repair, solving a problem. It's got to kind of meditate, hence why I like the music I have in the background. Work on your breathing, and I know I'm rambling. This is boring to watch. I'm going to wipe it down here again in a minute and see if I've got more of that orange peel gone. And I'm not going for perfection to be able to save the time, and which would add up to cost for the customer. I'm just going for really good. It's an older guitar that already has a worn finish. I'm not looking for perfection. Okay. Now let's wipe this down. I am ready to go to the 800. That looks really good. That looks really good. Really good. Real happy with that. On to the 800. Then I'll come back when we're getting down into the last layers and we're doing the buffing, but that's wet sanding, okay? Next the 800, then 1,000, then 1,500, then 2,000, 2,500, and then we'll start with the compound. I'll come back when we're ready to do the compound. I'm not done. I thought I'd just give you a quick update. Here's what it looks like, wet sanded down to 1,500. Again, you can see it's getting pretty well blended in. It's really nice and smooth. Whoops, sorry, I hit with my foot. But again, just to do less rubbing with compound, I like to go up to 2,500 grit. So I've got to do 1,500, 2,000, then 2,500. And again, we'll come back when we're ready to hit the compound. Just finished doing the 2,000, and I just thought you might like to see how it's actually starting to get reflective. I can actually get the light just right, and you can see the image of my fluorescent lights on the ceiling. So it's starting to get reflective. It's really close. I'm going to do the last one I have to do is 2,500, then the compound. We'll be back. All right, coming up on the final steps in this, I've got this all wet sanded down to 2,500. So what I like to do for hand doing this is I've got a block of hardwood and I wrap about, I've got a clean white t-shirt cut up and I wrap about 8 layers. You know, I got 4 and then I fold it over for 4 and 8 and I wrap it around this block, and this is going to be my hand buffing block, okay? Now I like to dampen this as well. And now I've got this heavy scratch remover. I'm gonna give it a good shake. And I'm gonna start by putting some on the pad. Then I'm gonna put a little more on where I'm working, okay? And I like to do this, especially on sides like this. This is a bigger area than I would normally do by hand. I would use a buffer pad, but what the heck? I'm already into this by hand, so I'm just gonna finish it up by hand. So again, just working in a circular motion. And I'm gonna go between a circular motion and a straight motion. I'm just gonna work this heavy scratch remover in. Change directions every now and then. Now I don't like to let this stuff dry on the guitar. I'll take when I'm done here, I will take a damp rag and wipe it off, and then we'll go to the next level, which is the fine scratch remover. And then if I think I need it, we'll go in with the swirl remover after. Yeah, this is a workout. I had to take a break after the wet sanding both sides. That's because my forearms were getting a little tired. So you work this in really good. You're not working it into the paint, but it's helping buff it out. I'm almost done with the first pass here. And of course, while I'm working with this, I'll go ahead, when this side is done, I'll go ahead and switch over and do the other side with the same pad. All right, I'm gonna wipe that down and have a look at it. Let's see what it looks like. You can see it's getting a little gray color from taking out some of the paint. All right, this is a wet rag. I'm just gonna wipe it off with a wet rag. And we're starting to see some nice look. Now when that's off, I'm gonna take a dry rag and wipe it down as well. Now I've got these rags outside of the camera range. I've got them set up where I have a separate rag for each level of compound. So I've got one for the heavy scratch remover, a clean one, and a wet one, and a damp one, and a dry one. And I've got one set aside for the heavy, the fine scratch remover, and then one for the. So that's looking better. It's kind of it's almost like a satin finish, which is what we're going for here. This isn't going to completely polish it, but I'm going to give it another go by. Okay. A little more compound down there, and go back to working it in. Yeah. Again, if I could do this with a spin buffer, but the other thing is I find doing the sides like this, I have to clamp it down to the bench, and it doesn't take me that much longer to do it by hand. And that's simply because I did sand up to 2500. If I've only sanded to 1200, it would take longer. But the extra wet sanding I do allows me to not have to do as much of this. And again, I don't normally do a space this big by hand, but good workout today. Now when I go to do the fine, I'll take the tape off on the sides here just to make sure I don't have a hard line between where I've polished and where I haven't. Make sure I get the binding good. That binding is nice and shiny. All right, we're starting to get stiff here. Starting to dry up, so let's wipe it down again. See what it looks like. All right, let's have a look. Whew. It's definitely a workout. Try to use a clean side of this wet rag. Get all that off of there. I'm gonna fold this over to expose another clean side. And then we'll rinse these out for the other side. All right, that looks good. Let's wipe it down with the dry rag. Boy, that's really good. Much better than the first pass. I'm going to take the camera and just give you a look from the top here. Hang on. So, definitely much nicer. So now we're going to do the fine compound. Whew. Put this rags back where they belong right now. The fine scratch remover. Put this block. Now I've also, as you can see, I've labeled these blocks, so when I use them in the, each time, I don't risk getting the other compound on it. It's kind of a smart idea to make sure you keep these compounds separate from each other. Kind of get low on this fine compound. I may just go to the, let's just go to the swirl remover. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. Well, I'll do the fine scratch remover first. Let's see how it does. So I need to get a little bit on the block. Look, I got a fold there. I want to make sure I don't have any folds in my cloth. Put some on this. Now we'll get more on the side of the guitar. Okay, there we go. Let's pick some of that up onto the pad. I also feel that, one of the things I'm working on really improving is my finishing work and finishing techniques. And like everything else, just like cutting wood and shaping wood, I feel like you really are better at it if you learn how to do it by hand first, rather than only learning to do it with power tools. Because if you really don't know how to cut wood and you use power tools or shape wood or drill wood, if you don't know how to do it by hand to do it well, using power tools just helps you ruin the wood faster. So just like that, was I'm really working on getting my finishing game going, is if I can get really good doing it by hand and really get to that next level with my finishing work, then when I go to use a buffing machine and all that, I'll be that much better because I'll really have a feel for it. It's my own kind of philosophy. I think it's kind of like learning to play an instrument. Is if you go slow, bass, you go slow, and you learn to work with a metronome, and you really get the feel into your hands before you start trying to play fast, intricate stuff. Even if fast, intricate stuff isn't your thing, you ought to have it in your tool bag, know how to play it. But the same thing with everything else. I think if I really get good at doing this finishing work by hand, then when I do need to do a big piece, and I can break out the machinery to do it, I'll have a better feel for it and I'll know what the hell I'm doing. I've done small finishing work in the past, and I've rattle canned a couple of necks and bodies when I built them, but I've typically let my instruments that I build I send them off to professional finishing shops for the people that do it all day, every day to do it right. But this chapter in my career, I'm going to learn to do it and improve on it rather. And that's you do that just by doing. All right, I got a piece I got to cut off of there that's flapping around. Where is it? There it is. hard. Trying to cut with your left hand is silly when you're right-handed. You need left-handed scissors. All right, there we go. Back to it. Now let's have a chance to dry a little. Whew. All right, I'm gonna hit it with the fine compound one more time. And if this goes well, I won't need to use the swirl remover. I know this is probably boring to watch. Again, with the music I've got in the background, it's fairly meditative. Although this is not quite so. I'm putting a lot more effort into this. All right. Whew. Let's wipe that down with a wet rag. A clean, wet cloth. Oh, we're getting close. We're getting really close. Okay, now with the dry rag, see if we can't buff up a little. I think we're done. Whew, look at that shine. Woo! I think that looks pretty dang good. Kind of hard, you can't, you know, the black blends in well. I mean, if you look for it, you can see that it was repaired. But let's see, let's take the camera over the top again. Here we go. Sorry. Getting a good reflection. There you can see the fluorescent lamps on the ceiling. I am not unhappy with that. Now what I'm gonna do is peel the tape back and check it against the existing finish. You know, the only thing, you know, if you really buff it to where it looks brand new, and then you're doing it on a guitar that is not brand new, they don't really jive real well together. You gotta kind of try to match it to the existing finish. So hopefully I am close to that. Let's have a look. Okay, let's take a wet rag right here at this where they came together. Same thing here. Now the dry rag, which I've got right here. That's where I'll probably go at it with the swirl remover. You can see a little bit of a line there where the tape was. How about this end? That end, not so much. That end looks all right. But this end, yeah, I can see a line where. But that's the only spot I got to worry about. So that's going to be done with the swirl remover, which we'll do when I go to do the other. All right, let's do the other side now. Whew. So going back to the heavy scratch remover. All right, you've seen how that's done. I'm going to stop, and then we'll come back when I'm going to do the swirl remover, which is the same process, but we're going to look at blending the edges in where the tape has been. All right, I have decided based on the way it looks that I'm not going to go with the swirl remover. Let's have a good look at this here. And there's a couple of spots where it burned through the very top color coat or clear coat, but it does blend in with the original finish. Let me see. You know what? I think right here I got a little bit more work to do with the fine scratch remover right here. There is a little bit of. I had to do this on the other side where I had the tape where I had to blend it. Let's put a little more elbow grease into that. I did the other side too. But other than that, And the guitar is the finish on it is in the, not, I say again, not rough shape, but it's definitely not, doesn't look new. So again, I'm not going for new perfection. In fact, these spots that I've, buffed out and painted are going to be the shiniest part of the whole guitar. I really want to leave as little evidence of what I did as I can. And it just takes me another couple, 2 or 3 minutes to try to get rid of those superficial scratches right there. Well, I got one foot on the floor. I'm trying to push down so hard. All right, let's wipe that down and have a look. All right, first the wet rag. Okay. And now the dry rag to buff. All right, that's better. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Little surface scratches I don't mind because again, this is not I'm trying to get the finish to kind of blend with the original finish, which really needs a good cleaning before I do a setup. All right, so that's this one. Now on to doing a setup. See you next time. I've got other videos show how to do a setup. So this one, just gotta clean it up a little bit and then do the setup on it. And she can pick it up this weekend. Whew, I'm building up a sweat. See you next time.